This episode is probably in the 400s at this point by the time this releases. So that means there's been 400 or more episodes of RX Radio. And still, to this day, we cannot figure out how to consistently get it to record audio and video. I did one last week with Baxter. No video recorded on his side. I was just staring at a black screen the whole time. But luckily, if you're here, hopefully you can see us, and you'll be able to see us the whole time today on this very special episode of RX Radio. Myself, Jordan Jiunta, here with James Macintosh, the one, the only James Macintosh. We're back. This is, I'm just going to say it. You're my favorite person to do podcasts with. I'm sorry, Shallow. I'm sorry, Thayer. I'm sorry. Bagheera's like on here semi-regularly. I love you guys, but this is like therapy for me. Just talking to you, Macintosh. It's so calming for me. Not that I don't love everyone else. I just love you the most.
I'm the favorite kid. You've just gone through the whole like parenting thing of like I don't have favorites, but this is the one that I really like. I'm happy with that. I'm okay with that. But
this is good. This is always good.
I feel like
well, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah,
thanks for taking the time.
Thanks, dude.
I don't know where this is going to go. We'll lead off with that. But before we dive into wherever we are going to go, just to give you guys a little bit of an update, what's coming down the pipe on the prescript side of things. I'm not exactly sure when this is going to release, but in July, we have the performance mechanics course running. We have skill acquisition with Killian Hamilton. That'll be late July, so that will probably still be open for registration by the time you hear our voices. After that, the big thing coming up is the Prescript Level 1 in September. We're going to have some really cool promotional material available for free. So not to let the cat out of the bag too early on that, but we will have a downloadable ebook. So if you guys are interested, a ton of value with that. It's almost like a peep into what you'll see with the Level 1. So head over to the Prescript website, www.pre-script.com. Throw your email on the email list, and you will get notified when that's available. Completely free, ton of value. We just want to get you to think like we think. That's a terrifying sentence, but on the whole, I would vouch for pretty much any prescript coach. I kind of took an inventory. I did like a stupid Q&A on Instagram the other day, and someone asked me if I'm taking online clients, which I will every now and then. It's not something I advertise, not something I do often. I'm very selective with it. But I noticed that every single person that I coach remote has taken the Prescript Level 1 because it puts us on a similar level of communication, which this actually might be a really good lead-in for this podcast. But I think that's a really important part about working with clients, especially when it's remote, because you don't have that real-time feedback of being in the same space at the same time with a person. So your communication has to be much more effective. So if you guys can have a similar vocabulary and vernacular around training and similar base understanding around training, it makes it a lot easier to communicate, especially with someone that's remote. So that's a little bit of an aside on my end. But I think there's a lot of value in this ebook, a ton of value in the Prescript Level 1. So if you guys haven't yet, now's a great time to look into that. Hop on the email list, and we'll let you know when registration is open. So thanks for listening to me. More importantly, though, Mac, how you doing, man?
Yeah, good, dude. Just I don't think I haven't really told anyone from that summit. I bought another house, so I'm moving.
Yeah.
So the place that you stayed, you're like, what? You're like what? The place that you stayed in when you came over here, that's not anymore. But it's the place that I sent you the videos of. Sick. So you can come back with me from the States. Yes, by the beach. So we can just hang out on the roof.
How many bedrooms?
It's a 2-bedroom, so there's a space for you. We're good. We're ready to go.
I'll be there, man.
You come back with me. Just come back with me from when we were in Vegas. We'll just get on the plane together, and then you can come back, and there's a Ziggy, and there's this cool view of the beach, and there's good coffee.
Amazing.
The coffee's really good.
I'm a good roommate. Yeah, I make coffee in the mornings. I can cook a steak. Not much else than that.
We don't even need to make coffee in the morning. because there's the coffee shop with some of the best coffee I've ever had in my life that opens at 5 a.m. every morning downstairs.
Oh,
literally, like you go out.
MVP.
Yeah, I know.
Dude,
that's why. that's
dude,
why
the
I
worst
got
thing
this building.
in the world, literally in the world, I've been around the world, and this happens everywhere, is coffee shops that open at like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock on like Saturday, Sunday. It's like,
Nope.
what the fuck? Like, I need this
Yeah.
coffee
So
before that time, or else I'm not going to be a decent
yes.
human. Like, open at like 7 is
Yeah.
the bare
Shout out
minimum. If you're not
Elk
open by
Espresso.
7,
Yeah. Oh no. Fuck
all
off.
right.
I immediately cross you off my list. Even if your coffee is good, it's like a good coffee shop
Yeah.
opens at like 5:30 a.m. It's like everyone's there.
Yeah.
Like I want to like there's the tattooed barista who's still got like some kind of hippie shit going on from the night before. Don't ask questions. I don't want to know. But he's just going to
No.
make my coffee, or she's going to make my coffee, and I'm just going to walk back upstairs and carry on working. I'm the
Amazing.
most excited about that.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
apparently
I
you
would
come
be
and live
too,
with me. Sick.
dude.
So
I'll be there.
pumped.
Yeah, I don't know how long we'll be able to I feel like this is a part of every episode we do is how can I illegally get into a country and stay there as long as
That's
possible,
fine.
but that'll be the case.
Just I think it's like 6 months. So you can stay till Christmas. And then we'll go home for
All right.
Christmas. Then I'll come back to the States with you for Christmas. Done. We can just do 6
There we
months
go.
in different places. I feel like that's the way to do things.
Amazing.
Yeah, dude, it's
Yeah.
good. Clients are good. I suppose why I'm coming over to the States is for WBFF Worlds with Lauren. I got my one of my girls competing. So that's her first competition or first time competing at Worlds. So it's a not pro debut, but a world debut. It's been an interesting prep for her. So she was predominantly a client, she was a client that came to me. She had some really bad back issues. She had Bell's disc, the standard, the very standard response to like back pain, if you were. But she went through an entire prep with this back pain, and they kind of just like compounded it, and eventually, within her prep, they were doing so much isolation movements, like muscular isolation movements, that she couldn't even prep anymore. She couldn't even get what she needed to get out of like her training. And luckily enough, COVID happened. So like there was a second bout of COVID. And I say luckily enough because I think from her standpoint, she was just getting to the point of like not loving. Like she part of the consult that we had was like, I don't even want to go into the gym anymore. And coming from her, and like I worked with her back when I moved over to Australia. And she loved fitness, she loved training, she loved being in the gym, she loved trying to get strong like that. She found a lot of empowerment from that, and the fact that she didn't. Sorry, dude, I've just seen my whiteboard. If anyone can see that, that is not a dick. All right, I don't want anyone to feel like that is. It's not. It's definitely not.
Dick,
I've just realized that.
Mac?
It's definitely not. That
looks like a dick.
That was me doing maths. It's upside down maths and me writing shit. You know what the funny thing is? I noticed that, and it's like someone will notice that in the podcast. That's such a tangent.
It's
anyways.
Way more
Lauren,
believable that that's a dick than it is that you were doing math. Come on, there's iPhones.
Yeah, this is actually very true. And I just realized how it's not in colors. Anyway, so Lauren, dude, and it took me. Like I'm gonna say, like it took me a year to rehab her, and I think we understand the process of when I use the words rehabilitation or rehab with her. It's like I'm not talking about dead bugs and curl ups for an entire year. I'm talking about her process of training was rehabilitative focused, was restoration focused. We went through tough periods, and it was already. And I think this is part of what I want to get across in this podcast, and we'll dive into it now. Is it was an entire year of us going through back and forths of having flare-ups, and then like mitigate, and then working on ways around the flare-up, and then the next flare-up would happen, but it would be for a shorter duration, and then like that until we got to we got a year out of this, and managed to then kind of she wanted to, and she had done the work from the rehabilitative process, and she prepped into her first pro debut show, which she took second at in the UK, which was fucking like phenomenal from that standpoint. She did, and in a new category, and very good from that standpoint. And then we went into our first like official build, and the conversations myself and her have been having have been so amazing from the standpoint of it took us a year to get her truly out of the time period and that pain and that rehabilitative process that she was in. She went into a prep, and we managed all of the niggles and injuries around in that prep very effectively. Now, part of that is I wouldn't generally rehab someone straight into a prep because there's low calories. We understand that like caloric values is going to make a huge difference in recoverability. And this is such a funny thing that I see all the time. It's like people get injured, surgeries, all of these types of things, and they immediately try and cut their calories. And it's kind of like, I find that so fascinating that that's a thing. Everyone's like, oh, but your output is less, so you need to decrease your calories. I'm like, yes, you're right, your output is less. But, and I dove into this personally myself when I obviously went through my hip replacement and my injuries, and I was trying to work out, like, how do I eat? How do I create the best environment possible for me to recover? Did a lot of research and went into it. And, I think there's new studies that have come out to this extent, but your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, sits at when you're injured and you're coming, and depending on what injury and surgery, bone, muscular, etc., it increases or can sit anywhere from your standard 100% to up to about 150%. So I sat there going, well, if my BMR can increase to 150%, I'm not saying it does. There's no way for us to physically, know exactly what the percentage goes up to. But why are we underfeeding ourselves? If anything, we could probably just eat the exact same amount, because that extra, 20 to 50%, whatever it is in terms of our BMR, will probably equate for the amount that we're increasing anyways to maintain, like to find our maintenance. And especially in her case, that was the main goal in that rehabilitative process, was just trying to get her to eat at maintenance and just trying to eat a little bit more food than what she was used to. Yes, she was training. It wasn't at the high intensities, and then took her into the prepped her, and I kind of digressed from where I was going. But essentially, in a recovery phase, my biggest thing is you don't diet in a recovery phase. It's not the goal. Mm-hmm. And I hate how we seem to have this misappropriation with whatever our training goal is, that we forget about nutrition will get dictated by our training goal. A lot of the times, it's not necessarily nutrition dictates our training goal. It's nutrition is dictated by our training. It's if I'm in a deficit, it's like the nutrition obviously. If I'm in a deficit from a nutritional standpoint, I'm not trying to give you as many sets as I can to make you grow. Like, that to me is stupid. There are two processes that don't equate together. It's like, okay, you want to get big and strong, eat food. Like, that's what you need. You need nutrients, you need calories, you need that to happen. So if you want to lose weight, we train to put on we train to preserve. And that's kind of the goal, and that's what this I'm glad to I think with what we've been trying to do as like a company, it sounds like it's like we're starting to put that message out there, and it seems to be getting more and more like it's logical. I don't know. I feel like I've bashed my head against the wall so many times having this argument with people, but it's logical. It's like if you don't have the calories there, you don't have, even if there's drugs, no drugs, whatever. You don't have the calories there. You don't have the outcome that helps you recover. Why are we chasing an output that requires recovery? Like, it doesn't. Absolutely. And yes, that's very basic, but it's like, how can we recover, or how can we require ourselves to recover on a lesser scale when we don't have we don't have the food there from that standpoint? Like, that's how this needs to occur. So, anyways, I take that approach into rehabbing, and the same thing occurred with Lauren. It's like, okay, cool. took her through this, kept her at maintenance food, pushed her food up a little bit so that her first dieting period into her first show was very effective because her food had been pushed up. She hadn't been living, she wasn't in pain. And that I think was a big factor in terms of that. And, I've lived in pain from that. You've got your back as well from that standpoint. It's like when your back is sore, it's like living in pain and having that pain and then trying not to eat food. Like everything's just a mess from that standpoint. Like the global response that occurs if you don't have the calories there to help you recover, even if it's from an injury, if it's from that injury standpoint, like it's just not there. So this is a very long explanation as to why I'm coming to the States. Anyway, so we've coming to the States with her, but this is, and the interesting conversation that we're now having is this is our first prep where we had an off season where she wasn't in pain. We weren't limited around movements. I could give her body volume. It's like I went through 2 years of like, I don't want to say maintenance volume, but essentially not volume that would equate in the long run to creating or picking up in the spaces that she needed to from a category standpoint. She needed more quads, she needed more glutes. A lot of what we were doing in our training and the rehab process with the training is just trying to like build her up and keep her at like a maintenance volume and try and increase, positional awareness and focus on a lot of the big ones like a rotation. The big thing I found for her, and she was my first athlete that I incorporated and like now incorporated with everyone, and I tried a lot of things on, but like dumbbell rows, we've spoken about this, but dumbbell rows to me are like a staple in anyone's program.
They're the GOAT.
For so many reasons. Exactly. They are the fucking GOAT. They are. They're loadable. They can be heavy. They're anti-rotation. They're out of frontal plane movement, so they're sagittal plane from that side. They work for bodybuilders from that standpoint. Why? Because they need to be able to rotate into their positions and into their poses. There is obviously the correlation of like having a upper thoracic that is mobile and has rotational aspects. We're going to have a better relationship in terms of being able to stack our pelvis. That's something that I found. We're not going to live in that end range extension. There's so many benefits to having a mobile rib cage or mobile upper thoracic. So it's like, well, I'm not going to make you do fucking paddle presses because I think that's a stupid exercise unless you're, my grandma. So why don't I give you something we can load and consistently load for the rest of time? And it's funny, she's even now, 2 years of working with me, 2.5 years of working with me. She's like, if I will never get a program and not have a contralateral row. And she's like, and I love them now. She's a 48 kilogram female. She's tiny. She's small. And when I say tiny, she's not tiny. She's a little girl. She's not a little girl. She's a little lady. Sorry, that sounds weird. She's a little lady from that standpoint. She's petite. She's petite in stature. And she's dumbbell rowing 30s, 35s.
Let's go.
It's like, dude, that's like, and that's the whole point. It's like we've built up to that, and she will always be able to do that. But okay, so I've given you guys a backstory into this. The biggest thing for me, and she was someone that I learned this from, and I was able to implement significant, was my communication with her. And I think this, to bring this into kind of from the introduction from that standpoint, the first conversation that myself and Lauren ever had was, one, I don't know what back pain feels like. I personally have never been in back pain. I have been in pain. I live in pain. I have, a really bad hip from that standpoint. I've been to the ends of it when I didn't want to kind of continue from that standpoint. But I will never tell you that I know what your pain feels like because I don't. And I don't think any human, even if I did have back pain, I have no right to say that my pain is worse than yours or yours is worse than mine, or I know exactly what you're feeling like. I can associate what that was like in my time. Like I was in so much pain that, I couldn't move. I couldn't lie down. I physically couldn't lie down. And that's the amount of pain that I was in. And the conversation I had with her was, I don't know what your pain is. Okay. And I'll never be able to associate what that pain is. I personally have been in pain. and I never want anyone to experience what I felt that pain was. So I will have your back in any and every aspect that I can from that standpoint, whether that's, finding people who are smarter than me, reaching out for consults, talking to you guys, from a clinician standpoint. And that was the conversation I had with her in the very beginning. And I have a lot of these conversations in variations of degrees depending on what they come to me from, as a coach for that standpoint, or what they come to me from as a client. So that was the first conversation. The second conversation that I had with her, or second topic of the conversation, was, I can't fix you. Okay? I can't fix you
Yeah.
because it's a structural problem. Okay, I'm not a surgeon. I'm not going to go in there and try and fix, I can't change the structure. We will create an environment, and I will create training programs, and I will get you to periods of not feeling this pain. There will be time frames where the pain will flare up. It will come back. You will do something, and some form of response will occur where, this pain will come back, or this inability to get into these positions, whether it's back pain, whether it's hip pain, whatever it is, it will flare up. It will come back. But my goal within training, my goal within helping you within this entire process, is that it does not come back, hopefully at the same amount. It does not come back at the same duration. And we are able to get over it that much faster and reestablish movements, reestablish training with all the protocols that we have as fast as possible. And something changed in me, but I saw the response in her of kind of like, dude, she had lived in pain for 2 years. Constant pain for 2-ish years. And just someone telling her, and we've had these conversations subsequently afterwards, but just someone telling her that I can't fix it, but, and it will come back, but we are going to work through it together. And we are going to, have really good periods and have little flare-ups that happen. It almost took the whole response away from her. She was just like, you know what? Its power of the pain almost decreased, is kind of how she's explained it to me in the long run. It's like, okay, this is going to happen. It's a thing that could now happen. But, we've got enough things behind us. We have the training protocol. We're still going to try and get you to move. And that was my main thing every single time something did come up. It's like, okay, we're still going to go train. We're just now going to, regress this or bring this in instead, or put you on a machine instead from the standpoint, and keep things moving. And the response I got from her from an emotional standpoint is honestly why I could rehab her.
Yeah.
Because back pain is pretty simple. And that's coming from someone who is, not a clinician. Just from my experience, just from the amount of females and males that I get that come to me with lower back pain, predominantly from living in end range extension, whether that's sport or just kind of life from that standpoint, and just learning how to breathe. And so, anyways, the idea behind this is fix it, give them pain-free ranges to kind of work through from that side. I get a lot of that. It's simple. It's not easy. And I think that's the key thing, is it's not easy. It's not a fix that's going to happen immediately, but it's pretty simple. It's like a lot of them have got no exposure to the sagittal plane at all. Everyone that comes to me is just like flexion extension. That's it. So it's like the dumbbell row that we kind of like, the transverse plane. It's like we have nothing from that standpoint. It's like we're sitting there and like, okay, well, how can I get you to do this? What can we do this from a movement standpoint? Lauren started with dead bugs because she literally could not do anything else. If she bent down to tie her shoelace, she was in pain. So it's like, and this is where, we give so much shit to like bird dogs, and we don't give so much shit. Sorry. We utilize the bird dog and the dead bug, etc., in its correct context, and then try and get people to understand that, hey, context is king with these things. They have a progression and a regression in terms of these exercises. That's it. Yes. Lauren, it was appropriate, because if she bent down and her feet were not directly together, and there was literally slightly out from that standpoint, and there was some form of rotation that needed to occur, she would almost fall over in pain.
Yeah.
And that's so it's like, okay, giving her, a floor as a base of support, teaching her how to kind of come through with like, activate her abs, get her abs to kind of come to the body through rotation. And even in the very beginning, it wasn't even rotation. It was just, can we hold the dead bug position? It's like that's how bad it was from that standpoint, and we had to unlearn these processes. And every week it was kind of, it's what I call like reactive programming. But the programming is not what I'm trying to talk about here. What I'm trying to talk about is the communication aspect and the understanding and the having the. I don't know if it's empathy. Is empathy the right word? Because
Yeah,
it's like
absolutely.
I've experienced it myself. I empathize with being in pain from that standpoint, but I think the reason why I'm good at this, and I think as a coach, if you can start to learn or think about this phrase of like, be the coach that you needed, be the human that you needed, be the person that you needed from that standpoint within that time frame. It's like I've always thought about it as like I needed, fuck, dude, I needed someone in my
Mm-hmm.
time period. That's it. I couldn't even give a shit who it was from that standpoint. I needed someone to say like, okay, I don't know how to fix you, but like we're gonna try. We're gonna
Right.
we're gonna try and do this. Like use some form of knowledge that they have. Like that's what I needed. So every client that or person, not even a client, like any person that I try and interact with from that standpoint, even on my worst days, it's like, what what can I give them that could hopefully help them? What did if they're in my position, what did they need? What did I need back then? Okay, I needed someone to just like I don't want to say the whole like mindset coach and like I fucking hate that. I think I hate that. If you call yourself a mindset coach, like I'm not trying to shit on you, but I just also don't think that that's a thing. I think it's something that is inherently done within this business. Okay, it is. You work on the mentality of someone. It's not. Stop trying to label yourself. Stop trying to give yourself some fucking naughty identification badge that says like I am a mindset coach. You're not a mindset coach. You work on someone's mindset within this industry. It's it's one of the tools that we land up kind of establishing by being trainers, by being in someone's presence all the time. It's like the fact that I'm in a relationship doesn't make me a relationship coach.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like don't use that word.
Yeah. I think
I've
people
been
don't
going
get
for a
that.
long
That
time.
coaching, right. Coaching is exactly that. It's being able to manage the mindset of your athletes. And that's true coaching, right? There's a lot of people who write
Yes.
programs who can teach you how to exercise properly. But to be a coach, you need to understand how to navigate the human in between their ears. And you made so many good points that I would not change a thing, but I actually want to circle back and build the importance on some of these things, because the main thing that I'll kind of keep it on the rails of lending towards mindset is the communication and the specific wording that you used around this, right? It's funny because we
Yep.
haven't had this specific conversation, you and I, but I use almost the same verbiage. I have the same tone towards these things. Is that the two words when you first described your initial interactions with Lauren were mitigate and manage, right? We're not going to fix
Yep.
the low back pain, right? We're not
Yep.
going to fix structural issues. They will heal to a degree. And I think that's something that does need to be highlighted, is that I'm sure you've herniated plenty of discs. I've herniated plenty of discs. I've helped people rehab disc herniations. In short, that's what I do for a living. That's a large part
Do for a
of
living.
what I do for a living. Um, the thing is that these injuries will heal, and they will heal to a very structurally stable point, and you can train through the healing process if you do it properly. But the big thing that you said is in terms of managing expectations around long-term outcomes, right? Is we're not fixing you, right? If you've had this injury, you're probably going to be predisposed to the same injury in the future unless something changes. And even if something doesn't change, the fact that you've had a structural injury probably does predispose you to that same injury again. So that's just a product of biases that you've developed over your entire lifespan, things that are probably so subconscious that we wouldn't even be able to intervene if we tried. But the thing is, what we can do the unique thing about the gym setting is we can elicit a stressor that can override day-to-day biases. If I always brush my teeth with my right hand, if I always stand up out of a chair with my left foot, whatever that is, that's maybe it's something that happens very frequently, very high volume, things that we're doing, but it's very low stress, right? So in the gym, we can elicit a high stress, lower volume, lower frequency uh, movement or some sort of stimulus that we can get you to adapt to, that's going to buffer your capacity to do those things, like you said, rotate through the sagittal plane, rotate through the rib cage, to a point where day-to-day shit is not going to phase you anymore. It's going to take a lot of compounding variables to get you back to that place where you're having flare-ups, where you're having pain. So that's a very important communication to be able to have, and a process to understand, is that we're not going to fix this. This has happened. You're in the place that you're in, but there's a lot of things that we can do to manage this. And if we pay attention to that process of managing it, and we can combine or compile variables that are going to help you feel better, compile variables that are going to make you feel worse, and start to gain data, gain information about this pain, and kind of put it in a box of, these are the things that define when you're going to have pain versus these are the things that are going to define when you have periods that don't have pain. Then we have exercises to pull from, and we have exercises that we know maybe are going to be less beneficial or higher risk exercises for that person. So as long as we can
Yep.
communicate that understanding effectively with the person, and there is very much the emotional side to this, right? There's the emotional buy-in is the first thing that you got in this situation, is you told her, I understand what pain is like. I don't understand what your pain is like. And I think being very honest and
Yep.
transparent, like a conversation I'll have often with clients, is, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I've had people in similar scenarios that have had favorable outcomes. I've had people in similar scenarios that have had less favorable outcomes. But there is something that we can do. And I think something that we need to realize as coaches is that there's a lot of compounding variables to pain, right? It's not just one thing. It's not just a disc herniation, right? One of the things that you mentioned was nutrition. That's very important. If we can take some of these compounding variables and we can manage them and get a baseline there, if you can get her out of a deficit, she's probably just going to feel better and recover better altogether, right? That could be one thing that maybe
Yep.
doesn't get rid of her pain, but she feels better. And then if we can take care of maybe life stressors or hydration, if we can get the sleep in check, if we can manage these things, then it just gives us a higher starting point, right? We're further from that place of a flare up where we have, if a flare up is compounding variables of overstressing in the gym, overstressing in life, being malnourished, not sleeping, and we can take care of maybe 3 of those 4 things, then that's going to put her further and further away from a flare up in any given scenario. And then if we can start to add in some of those things that we've already defined are going to be beneficial, or going to get her to have an increased capacity to do things that we have already identified that she's at a deficit to do, that she should be able to do, so that she's not overstressing that area, then those are the things that are going to help you manage a scenario like that. Because it's, no, we can't predict the outcome, right? There's a lot of things that, sometimes don't make sense even when we have all the information with the human body. And that's because pain can be psychosomatic. It can be no actual physical cause of pain. It can be something that's more, like you said, emotional. It can be an emotional response. It can be a response to psychological stress. It can be the physical variables, and it can be these biases that we've accumulated. So if we can start to compile information every single one of these categories, and we can start to do more of the things that help her to feel better, less of the things that tend to flare it up, then that's going to get you on the track to having improvement. Even if you can't quantify that, if you can't put a time frame on it, those are going to be all things that are going to help improve the situation, long term or short term, and they're going to be recreatable because you have that information. So that's something that you
Yeah.
outlined
That's
that whole
yeah.
process very well. And I, like I said, I wouldn't change a thing. I just want to make sure that people are understanding that as they listen to it.
Yeah, you're giving the points of versus the story. You're giving like the idea, the principles behind that versus the story of what they kind of went through. And it's like, I honestly, sometimes I look at these things and I go through it. It's like it becomes so natural for us, and like having this conversation is cool even from my standpoint, because it's things that I start to do naturally, but I've never necessarily like looked back on like how I plot that process out. So I think
Right.
like that's a learning process for me. Like you're auditing my process, which is a pretty cool thing from that standpoint, because like I just do it. If that's it, it's
Right.
like I don't want to say that I don't know how I do it, but I don't necessarily have like a step 1 to step 2 to step 3. So it's kind of cool that you can like point that out and like, oh, this is part of the process of what you as a coach or an individual want to start learning and want to start trying to pick up from that standpoint. It's that first thing that you want to talk about. It's like, how do we mitigate? What's the language that we use around these things? What's the
Yeah.
what's the I don't want to say the connection, but essentially that's what it is. It's and it goes back to this whole like the mindset shit. I think as a coach, you inherently do all of these things that for some reason have received, I don't know, publicity to some extent, like a mindset coach. I don't get it. I don't get it because I feel like it's something that we just do on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I'm not an individual. I'm not a coach from that standpoint who, when someone tells me that they're having a shit day, I'm not going to turn around and be like, oh, you need to do more yoga or I don't fuck it, whatever. I don't know from that standpoint. I have tools
Yeah.
that I implement with certain people. I have some clients that if I told them to miss the gym and go and do a meditation or a walk for, works amazingly. Go
Yeah.
instead of like, I have one of my clients who has a really tough time around a period in the month, or say a date or a week in the month, and that week in the month we auto regulate a lot of things. We've had this conversation. We talk about, like, hey, instead, if you wake up in the morning and like it just feels very overwhelming, there's a lot going on, and it generally tends to be around like certain dates within the month or certain weeks within the month. It's like we have a protocol that we have put in place for that. So she goes for walks.
Yeah.
She goes and does the things that makes her feel better from that. Exactly.
Yeah.
That list of things that we've kind of determined over this coaching period of like what makes it better, what makes it worse. So she does all the things that makes it better in that time period, and then she just gets back on track from the standpoint. I have other clients that if I tell them that they're not going to train during their week, even if it's the most stressful week in their life, they're not going to listen to me.
Yeah.
They're not, because training to them helps them de-stress, helps them it gives them some form of control around that. And I think this is the whole communication standpoint. This is the emotional intelligence. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of, to put a fucking thumbtack on it, or like give it a name if we were from that side. I think it's emotional intelligence, the mindset coaching, the fucking wellness, all of that shit. Honestly, just falls into you being a coach that has EQ. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Can you
Absolutely.
regulate between these things?
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is actively listening, right? That's the difference between a coach and a programmer, right? Is I can draw you out a program from here through the next quad where you'll win the Olympic championships if you follow everything
Yeah.
and you can hit every percent in, a reasonable increase of 3 to 5% every 8 to 12 weeks, whatever. That doesn't matter. What matters is the deviations from the program, right? Because life happens, right? Is that if you know what
Yep.
motivates this person, I have people that if it's on the program, they're going to do it no matter what, right? Or they're going to try and do it no matter what. And then I have other people, these people differently. So if you can actively listen, and a big part of this too is identify, yeah, I can't talk today. Identifying
RX'D.
motivating factors, right? Is that if you
Yes.
know what motivates this person, I have people that if it's on the program, they're going to do it no matter what, right? Or they're going to try and do it no matter what. And then I have other people
Yeah.
that are going to try and get out of shit. Like that's the interesting thing about probably a little different the population I work with than what you work with is that I work with kind of two ends of the spectrum. I work with people that have very athletic goals that are very objective, and then I work with people that are maybe they're not athletes at all and they're just trying to get out of pain. It's true rehab on like a general
Yeah.
population kind of level. So if I
Standpoint.
tell them like, hey, we need to do planks and isometric lunge holds, that's a very demanding physical task for them. And if one thing goes wrong within their day, they might not do that. So I need to communicate very differently with that person than I do the person that if they have to snatch 90% today, they're going to kill themselves to snatch 90% today, even if it's a shitty day. So there are two different ways that I need to, or does this person want to win a national championship? And that dialogue changes a lot because you can tie back whatever they're saying. You listen to the words that they're saying, or does this person want to win a national championship? And that dialogue changes a lot because you can tie back whatever they're saying. You listen to the words that they're saying, relate that to the goal, and get them, because a lot of times people get stuck in the moment, right? They're like, I need this training session or everything's going to unravel. Or if I have a bad week in the gym, like relate that to the goal and get them, because a lot of times people get stuck in the moment, right? They're like, I need this training session or everything's going to unravel. Or if I have a bad week in the gym, like it feels like the world's going to end. And we need to be able to disarm those or kind of meet that with some sort of counter argument of why that's not true, right? Is if we're not going to be productive snatching 90%, what if we hurt your wrist because you have a bad miss? Or what if you tweak your knee doing something in the gym that's affecting their motivation or their mindset around this? And then also be able to affecting their motivation or their mindset around this, and then also be able to relate that back to the end goal. What are we actually trying to accomplish, and what's going to be the most productive thing in this given situation for us to do so that we can get back on track and head towards that as opposed to deviate away from that.
Yeah. But it's the biggest thing you say in all this is like communication is listening. It's like that's it. That's honestly it from that standpoint. It's how good can you listen to the person in front of you? Because it's not about speaking, it's not about being the best, saying the best things or having the best verbiage, or it's honestly got nothing to do with that. If you don't listen and take in, as you said, actively listen to what that person is saying, because that's 90% of the answer, I think. It's like when someone gives me or starts talking to me, I spend, like, this sounds terrible. It's like I spend more time listening than I do then thinking on the response. Because a lot of the time, what they're telling me, I just say back to them, because that's what a lot of people are looking for. Is they're looking for like the confidence with them. They're looking for that person. It's that's 90% of my job is just being there for an individual. Like I said to Lauren in the very beginning, and like you do from that side, it's like it's just having someone in your corner. That's it. I didn't give her an answer. I didn't give her a solution from the standpoint of like I've had people in favorable outcomes and I've had people in less favorable outcomes. Yes, what we do will make a difference, but it's just having someone in your back that's like in your corner that's like, I got your back. The pun not intended, pun unintended in this case, but I literally have got your back from the standpoint of like, we're gonna fucking do this together. We're gonna get through it together. Like we're going to make sure that we have some form of progress. And when we don't, it's like, cool, you're gonna fall on me. You can lean on me from that standpoint. It's like, and I'm going to find some form of solution, whether that's, it may not be the direct correlation to like fixing or decreasing the injury, but the solution may be, creating some form of mobility. It's like, let's go for a walk instead. Like, I will give you something that will create some form of favorable outcome to the long run of these things. It's not, it's about having faith that someone is going to follow through and be able to actually just be there. And again, it goes back to the whole point of like, what did I need when I was a coach? Or what did I need when I was in that position of that excruciating pain? It's like, dude, I just needed someone to be there.
Yeah.
No one was going to fix my problem. Like my bone was rotting. So the only person that was fixing it was fucking the surgeon. That was it. But all I wanted from that standpoint was I wanted someone to just be like, I don't know what's wrong, but like, do you want to like walk to the gun range? Okay, sick. Let's go. Like that's kind of what I wanted. Like and that's it. It's like it's and I think when I think about those things now as a coach, like there's a lot more to this. I think this is the subcategory of coaching that we're talking about. This is the mindset. This is the mindset coaching that I don't put in my bio or fucking my Instagram description of what I do, because it's just what you do. It's like the only way your athletes, your
Right.
clientele are
Yeah.
actually going to make progress is if you start to work on their mindset. Like you said, it's in between. It's no one.
I love it.
No one, fuck, it frustrates me. No, dude, I'm just gonna rant and just shout at people because it's just I don't understand how.
I love it.
Like, I just don't get why people have got to this point of like having to create this identity marker around things. It's like you're not a mindset coach. You don't predominantly just do mindset. It's like, and if you do you know what works really, really good for like a positive outcome on mindset? I don't know, training, physical performance, changing your body from that. So it's like, and now what are you gonna do? Be a personal trainer again? Oh, funny that. Why don't you just stick to the fucking thing that you started with, and then understand that mindset is
Yeah.
incorporated with that? It's all of these like trends and shit that follows on from that. You're a coach. Call yourself a coach, and then just get really good results with people.
Right.
And results are not just physical or like from a structure of like what they look like. That's not about looking. It's always about looking good naked. Everyone wants to look good naked, but a lot of the times, the true results
True.
that you see from this is like, I think I've spoken about it in one of my podcasts before. Something like my one of my older clients from that standpoint send me a message like, I went for a hike this weekend and it's the first time in 6 months that my knees haven't hurt. It's amazing. It's like, dude, that's as much as that's a physical result,
Unreal.
mentally, she's like, I can take on the fucking world. It's like, you've re-given me
Yeah.
youth. You've re-given me
Absolutely.
like everything that I can do from that side. That's mindset coaching. That there is mindset coaching. Because
The
now she's
most
going to continue.
valuable information
Yes.
the most valuable information that I've gotten from clients for my entire career. And I work with a lot of people in person still, but I also work with some people online. And there's always some sort of check in or interaction between us. And there's two questions that I ask in this order. First, how are you? Not how did it go
Yep.
or anything like that. It's how are you?
Yep.
And people will give you more information than you ever thought that they would give you if you just ask them genuinely,
How
how are
you?
you?
Yes.
And they'll tell you about how they fucking hate their boss. They'll tell you how they got in a fight with their wife. They'll tell you about their bastard kid getting suspended from school. It doesn't matter what it is, but they'll just give you information. You need to know your clients on this level to be effective in coaching them and coaching in the terms of communicating and understanding their mindset. So the first question is always, how are you?
Yep.
The second question after that, and there's a point I want to make too, is that dig in on this is when they give you information, pull on that string because
Yep.
they're going to give you something very surface level.
Yep.
But if you say, if again is how are you feeling? I always want to know how they are up here first in their head, and then I want to know physically how they're feeling because what do? We need to manage. Again, is how are you feeling?
Yep.
I always want to know how they are up here first in their head, and then I want to know physically how they're feeling because what do? We need to manage physical and mental stress.
Yep.
That's the scale that we're trying to balance as a coach. So if I know where your mental stress levels are, then I can adjust accordingly for the physical stressors. Vice versa. If I know where the physical stressors are, or maybe you had a very physical day. I had a client that came in to me for frozen shoulder, and she's had incredible results, but she came in for a session and she had hiked Yosemite, which is like this crazy, like I don't know, like 12-mile hike or something the weekend before. I'm like, oh, we're not doing shit today. We're just going to sit on a foam roller and talk about Yosemite is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
It's like, it's sometimes if you dig in a little bit on these questions, you can understand both the physical and the mental a little bit more so that you can adjust real time. So they never knew the original plan. You were able to change it before we got to that point. So we don't have to have that feeling of defeat, like, oh, I didn't do the thing I was supposed to do,
Yep.
or we had to adjust it because adjusting programming is the worst thing in some people's eyes.
Yep.
So if you can understand that and you can understand the person and fucking dig in, pull on those strings all the way to the end so that you can really understand them. And that builds trust and that builds a relationship. And they're going to want to tell you more the next time. So you're going to have an understanding of that person that, oh, I come into the gym and we talk about how my life is going. We talk about me. And honestly, sometimes that's all people want. is they just want to talk. They want to get shit off their chest.
Yeah.
I've had so many clients, like this is more when I was more personal training, but they just want to come in and talk to someone for an hour. And they
Yeah.
feel better talking to you, and you just have them do some shit in the meantime, which is fine. There's still benefit to that. But the real benefit that they don't even know that they're getting is they have someone to talk to.
Yep. Dude, and that's but you know what the funny thing is though? It's like that's mindset coaching. That's it. Because you're doing more for their mindset
That's
from
it.
like a positive response than you are from like, let's write down what you're grateful for today. Like I listen, and I'm shitting on it. I am shitting on it. But at the same time, it's like it
You're
has a
shitting on
time
one
and a
person
place.
specifically. I know you are.
But you know what the thing
You can
is?
tell me off air.
You know what the best part about, like, the funny thing with it though is, like, I shit on it. It's like, and I utilize it as a tool with certain clients because I've got to the point of understanding that it's a tool. It's like I don't get, and this is what the whole thing is. I don't get how we create like this entire profession that's selling a tool. Essentially, that's what mindset coaching is to me, and it always like
Mhm.
baffles my brain because I'm like, well, like you're paying someone stupid amounts of money, and you could kind of just like Google gratitude journal template and like get your Notion template off Google for free, and just go. And no, here's the thing.
Yeah.
I understand that there's a lot more to that than what I've just kind of simplified and bastardized from that standpoint. It's like it's accountability. It's having someone, it's having someone to talk to from that standpoint. But it's like that's what you're doing as a personal trainer. That's what you're doing with your online clients, checking in with them all the time. It's like, how are you? It's funny That's the first question you asked me when we jumped onto this before when we were all fair. And but it's and
Always,
I'm
because I
not.
care, man.
Yeah,
Of course.
but yeah, but that's it there, dude. Because you care. That's it. If you want communication, you want to be a good coach, mindset, whatever you go in from that standpoint, it's like it's giving a shit about the people who come to you looking for help, looking for advice, looking to get better at whatever it is, Olympic weightlifting, coaching, bodybuilding, whatever it is. It's caring about them and it's showing that you care. The how are you question. It's having the conversations like I had with Lawrence, like because I genuinely give a shit about the people who come to me, and it's not the cliche
Yeah.
thing of like I don't like if they didn't pay me money I'd still do this thing. I probably would still do it from that standpoint. It's like if all my bills and shit were paid, it's like because I do care about people from that standpoint. I don't like, especially the experience that I've been through. It's like I don't like understanding or knowing that people are in pain. On the flip side of this, though,
Yeah. Absolutely.
is I know a lot of people who are in pain who just keep doing the same fucking stupid shit. And
Right.
that's
Yeah.
the other side of it. Is like understanding it's a hard lesson that I learned, and I don't want to discredit this part of the conversation that we're having. It's like it's a hard lesson I learned as a coach of you can be compassionate, you can go to the ends of the earth to try and help people and go through all of these things and the EQ side of it. And some people just don't want to be helped. They say they want to be helped,
Yeah.
but they're
Yeah.
not at the standpoint. They're not at their point in time to be helped out of the pain that they're in. And dude, it took me
That's
some real hard fucking experiences to go through and like trying to help people and going through all these things. And literally, I sat there and I was like, it's only, to be honest, it's only been recently in the last year or so that I've come to that realization of like some people prefer the victim role, and that gets thrown around a bit, but prefer that victim role, and they're not ready for help. They haven't accepted the fact that
yeah.
they are in trouble. They're looking for help from that standpoint. They're not going to get out of this themselves. And any human can help you as much as you want, but if you don't personally, your client doesn't try. Like Lauren was my best experience from that standpoint. I gave her the confidence, and then she showed like she gave me 120% on top of that. Everything I did, she tried.
Yes. Yes.
Communication, like everything from that standpoint, she just gave me back even more. And then I've had clients who do the complete opposite. It's like I can give you all of the tools, I can give you the fucking stupid mindset thing. I can give you the ice balls. I can give you the training program that's 100% perfect. I can check on you daily. I can do it all. And you just don't try, or you don't give any effort from that side. And that's, dude, honestly, that's where like only the committed was born. Like it was born, yeah,
OTC.
fucking in 2022. It was born from that standpoint of like, I will go to the ends of the earth for my clients, my friends, the people that I fuck with from that standpoint, if they try. If I see
Yes.
just a little bit, I don't
Yes.
care. I don't care what it is. I don't care that you can't do it. Show me that you're trying just that little bit. You can be overwhelmed, stuck with
Yeah.
business, fucking like any one of our friends, any of us, like from that standpoint. It's like if you're having a shit time, like a shit, real fucking bad time. It's like, and you're overwhelmed. You can't get work out. You can't do all that from that standpoint. If I see you just like wallowing away, I don't want to say like this sounds terrible. It's like I don't care at that standpoint. If you're just you've given up yourself, then I can't help you. I see you fucking fighting. I see
That's
you
such a
like
good
with that
point.
head above water, dude. I'm going in. I'm coming in. Like I'll be underneath you. I'll pull you out of the fucking water. That's what I'm gonna do because I see you still fighting. And I see that in every single one of my clients that come to me,
Yeah.
In whatever standpoint that is, if it's pain, if it's, whatever, life, anything from that, I see that whole thing of like, you're trying, I'm going to give you back everything that I can to make sure that you succeed from that standpoint.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And that's such a good point because we need to look at this as exactly what it is. It's a relationship.
Mm,
It's a coaching relationship, right? And there's times when it's going to be great and there's people that resonate with each other and that's going to be a great relationship. And there's going to be people that your energy just does not match up and you need to identify when that is and when it needs to end.
yep,
And the way that I think of the same exact principle that you just stated is I will invest exactly as much in you as you invest in me in that relationship,
yep,
right? That's not 100% true of personal relationships, but
yep,
a coaching relationship.
yep,
I will invest exactly as much. I will match your energy 100%. The more eager you are to learn, the more I'll teach you. The less eager you are, the less effort I'm going to put into this because I don't see that hunger. I don't see that want. I'm going to give you the service that you think you're paying for, that you feel the value from, but that's going to be different from person to person because people are going to want to explore different avenues within that,
yep.
right? And I I don't want to sound too full of myself here, but I have a wealth of fucking knowledge. Like
Yeah, you do,
I've
bro.
been in this industry for a long time. I can help people in a lot of different ways, and it makes me feel the most valued when they explore that, when they want my help, when they want the services I can offer, when they want to learn from me. And
Yep,
I'll be your teacher. I will teach you anything you want to know. But if you don't want to know and you just want a spreadsheet, then that relationship is not going to last very long because I'm not very invested in it because
yep,
you're not very invested in it. If
yep,
you just want numbers on a spreadsheet, like I'm not just going to keep taking your money just so I can give you a program that you could print off from Google
yep,
or pay $30 to get. And that's not a situation where I feel valued in that relationship. So it's not going to last very long. That's something that's going to have a quick expiration date on it. So some of my favorite lifters are not, they'll never go to nationals. They'll never achieve anything in terms of athletic pursuits, but they're people that have been with me for 3, 4, 5 years that have had incredible results, and they know they probably can replace me, to be honest, is they know everything I know because they're just so curious and they always ask why and they want to know the reason behind what they're doing. And there's this hunger for knowledge. They don't just want me to give them the answers. They want to come to the answers on their own and they ask questions and they come to me and they say, "Is this why we're doing this?" And I say, "Fuck yeah, it is. You don't need me anymore." And that's the relationship that I like, is because you're developing someone not only just by giving them the tools to succeed, but in, a specific discipline, but you're actually giving them the knowledge in which they can succeed on their own. And
yep.
that's the type of relationship that I want to build with anyone that I'm coaching.
Yeah, and it's the beauty of that is like that. I see that relationship like being everlasting from that side. Like it'll get to a point where they've asked all the
Yeah.
questions that they kind of can from that standpoint, but they're gonna continuously be there because you can always have conversations with them. Any conversation you have with that client will always be Like it will always either ignite something and when I say any conversation, maybe in a week or in a month or something from that standpoint, it's like they'll ask a question and you sit there and you're like, fuck, I've never thought about it from that standpoint. Or like people are fantastic from that.
Yeah.
And that's why I love coaching. It's like, I say this all the time. It's like, I'm not the smartest person. I know that. I'm really not. But I love listening to the clients that come to me as well. And they'll ask me, and like, I'll have the answers to the questions a lot of the time. And then they'll ask a follow-up question to that. And I immediately in my head go, okay, like that's a question I haven't heard before on the topic. It's like, why are they suddenly thinking about that? I was like, that fucking like excites me from that standpoint. They were asking the fact that they're asking questions excites me, and then second, it's like, okay, now we can learn better. It's like now, like this benefits Prescript. This benefits my business. This benefits the way that I think. Like all of this becomes like this ecosystem of fucking cool shit. I don't know, like what give it a term. I don't want to give it a term because I feel like that's stupid. But at the end of the day, it's like the more that I benefit from those people who come into my coaching business, whether it's injury, performance, bodybuilding, whatever it is from that standpoint. And and don't get me wrong, I have some clients who just do this shit and get it done all the time, and they nail it, and there's no questions asked from that standpoint. And then out of nowhere, like every 6 months or something, like they'll ask me something or they'll say something. It doesn't even have to be a question. They'll say something, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, where did that come from? It's like, oh, they've been listening. They take on everything from that standpoint. Like you said, the client who comes to you is like, so we're doing, landmine dumbbell fucking RDLs, landmine RDLs. It's like, because we want internal rotation. You're like, yes, motherfucker, you've been thinking. You can understand everything that we've been doing. And you get fired up over like, and that one event can happen once a year or once every 6 months or something like that. And they continue to do the program and they get great results. And like, I love having clients like that. But I don't think any of that happens unless you try and you go into the relationship understanding it like it is a relationship and it takes its time. It builds. It's the communication. It's like a lot of my clients I speak to a huge amount, especially in the very beginning when we start together. And I speak to them, yes, training related and like everything from that. But it's like, I want to understand who they are. Like an intake form is great. And the hour that I do in terms of the call that I do with them is great as well. But that doesn't tell me who you are. That doesn't give me the nourishment of the relationship that I need. Like the training's cool, it gets better, everything's out of pain, great. What about your family? Like, oh, cool, we're going on hikes with the family, sick. Now it's like you start learning the kids' names. That's coaching, dude. I think that's coaching. I think that's like the fulfillment side of coaching that becomes so cool. It's like, I know one of my clients, Tessa, shout out Tessa. She's in Africa right now with her family on like game drives. She calls them safaris. You guys are weird when you call them that. And like she sent me like a video. She's like, I know you've probably seen this before. But like, she sent me a video of I think it was a cheetah taking down a kudu or blessbuck or whatever it was, whatever we would call it. Dude, it's epic. And she was just like, and you know what the cool thing is? Like, we had a conversation around that. She's one of my clients. It's like, and I've learned, like, and it's got nothing to do with lifting. It's got to do with the fact of like, out of that conversation was just like, how amazing is nature? Like how brutal and how beautiful at the same time. It's like how like what's the right word? Primitive is nature from that side. It's like it's brutal. It's all this, and then like dude, it's got fuck all to do with lifting. She's one of my most badass lifters. I love her to bits because like she's strong. She tries so fucking hard. She does everything like, dude, and she asks questions and she does all these things. But the relationship that we built from that standpoint is like, I'm getting videos from her in Africa of like a lion killing a whole bunch of shit. I fucking love that. It's like, that's the shit that, because I've made, like, it's benefiting someone's life. It's cool. I fucking love that. And then she's going to get back from a trip and she's going to carry on being a badass fucking woman and squat stupid amounts of weight and just carry on. And that's what I love, dude. But none of that happens unless you have that EQ standpoint, or you think about it, or you try and develop it. I think that's like, it's the between the ears thing. So focus on between the ears, and a lot of that, like you can, like training's easy. Sorry, training's simple.
Yeah.
Training is simple. Injuries are simple.
Right.
Right? It's the mental side that's
People
fucking
are
hard.
not.
People are not. And then like people are not, and then how people
Right.
think are not. So it's like develop that, and you'll get really, really good at just being a great coach, and you'll get great results.
Yeah. And your clients will stay with you literally forever.
Forever. That's it.
Beautiful. I love it. Yeah, that's literally it. Just
That's
care.
it.
Give a shit
Just
about
care.
what you do, and give a shit about the people you do it for. Just care. Amazing. I don't think there's anything I have to add to that. I appreciate a look into your perspective, Mac. Always a pleasure hanging out with you and Zig back there.
Yeah.
That's definitely a dick on your whiteboard.
The more I look at him, I'm like, fuck. Probably a cleaner, dude. The cleaner
Yeah, it's
comes every
definitely
like 2 weeks, and she just like leaves random shit. It's weird. Anyways.
draws dicks. Yeah. Yeah. She takes
Well.
the 20s out of your nightstand and draws dicks on your whiteboard. Anyways.
On that note, we're fucking out here.
If you made it this far, I appreciate you more than you know, because I do care about literally every single person that tunes into this podcast week over week. You guys are amazing. Appreciate you. Mac, I appreciate you for being here. If you guys want to hang out with us more, hit us up, www.pre-script.com. Coach James Mac, right, on Instagram.
That's it.
Is that it? Did I nail it?
Yep.
Got it? Cool. Appreciate you guys. We'll see you soon.